Hello, Capstone. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the scoring guide, and I'm going to walk you through a few sample introductions. And this will, I hope, get you ready to write your own introduction this week. That's going to be due on Wednesday night, and I'm going to also go over later on body paragraphs and walk you through those, and then we'll have our first body paragraph due on Sunday night. Anyway, so what you're looking at right here is the scoring guide for the IWA. That's the paper you're working on now. And you can see that it has these three categories: understanding and analyze context, understand and analyze context, understand and analyze perspective, and then you go down a page and you've got establish argument, select and use evidence, apply conventions, that's your citations, and then apply conventions, and that's grammar and style, that's your writing. So I'm going to focus on, actually today, just the understanding and analyze context number 2. Now I have the scoring guide that the scorers use here. Let's take a look at that first. Notice it looks a little bit different. And I'm focused here on this section. So if you look at the part that I've highlighted in yellow, you can see that this, by the way, has a point value of 5 out of the total. And what you're looking for here is the response explains the significance or importance of the research question by situating it within a larger context. All right. So where this happens, of course, as you can see here, is usually in the first few paragraphs. In essence, this is your introduction. Now, your introduction can be more than one paragraph. Most of them aren't, but some of them are. But what you have to accomplish in the beginning is you need to provide a detailed explanation of why this research question matters by putting it in context. And if you look over here with this is the yes or no. Does the paper do this? And right here is the yes. Does it contain specific and relevant details, the what, the who, the when, the where, to convey why the research question matters or is important? And, so it's got to do both of these things, there has to be an alignment between the research question and the context. And you'd think, well, how in the world does anybody do it without aligning it? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to show you one that works, or actually I'm going to show you maybe a couple that work, and then one that doesn't, and you can tell where they went wrong. All right, moving on here. Okay, so here is our first high-scoring introduction. And even just looking at it right away, I mean, without even reading it, you can tell there's research in here. This isn't just the research, the introductions like you usually write for your English classes. We dive right into citing sources from the first sentence. So this one you should be familiar with based upon the outline that I've given you. It says that utilizing data science to establish sustainable agricultural production system in China. All right, intro. The 21st century can as well be described as the Asian century, with China emerging as a global economic and political powerhouse that is contested only by the United States. Accompanying its growth is the expansion of its agriculture industry, which employs more than 300 million farmers and tops the worldwide farm output ranking. Food security has always been one of the top priorities of China due to its rapid population growth. The Chinese population grew from 600 million to over 1.3 billion in the past 50 years, which exerted, quote, steady pressure on China to keep expanding its agricultural production. To meet the increased demand for food, the Chinese agricultural sector adopted the ideology of pollute first and then clean up. As a result, the agricultural industry of China became robust, feeding 22% of the world population. However, this simultaneously engendered serious environmental pollution, partly due to heavy reliance on chemical fertilizers. In fact, in 2013, the Chinese agricultural sector used 59.11 million tons of fertilizers, 35.5% of the world's total usage. The number will only increase if the Chinese government fails to introduce effective means of sustainable, pollution-free production, which would degrade the available arable soil, eventually hurting the Chinese agricultural industry and cutting the global food supply to a significant extent. Therefore, it is crucial that the Chinese government invest in altering its farming practices and achieve sustainable production in an effective manner. This paper will examine which method the Chinese government should apply in order to facilitate sustainable agriculture. So what I notice about this one is that this student sort of funnels down. He talks about the importance of China as a nation because it's emerging as the powerhouse politically and globally that it is in the 21st century, funnels down to the food, the need to feed so many millions or billions of people, and funnels down to the problem that China faces with feeding that many people in a way that's sustainable. What's nice here, and as I've noted in the margins, is that this introduces the problem and the context with data and facts. So I come away definitely a smarter person about this for having read this, for knowing that, well, the Chinese agricultural industry feeds 22% of the world's population, that it does so with 59.11 million tons of fertilizer in a single year, and that the population is growing. So I know that this is a serious problem. Just the scale of it is pretty staggering. Now, I want to contrast this particular introduction with this one. This sounds like it could have been an interesting paper, but it ended up being fairly low scoring. So this writer writes, when watching superhero movies, you can see many different ways that superheroes got their power. This can include radioactivity, being born with it, and having it bestowed upon you by a god. There is one way that I want to focus on today, technology, that alters the perception and physical attribute of people in the military, creating super soldiers. So this one has just now introduced his topic, or her topic, probably his. I know that's stereotyping, but I'm going for it. So super soldiers, enhanced soldiers, using technology to give them perhaps greater strengths or greater perception and so forth. So the problem, of course, is that we've begun by talking about superhero movies. So at the beginning, I think this has got to be about superhero movies. That's what this paper is about, but it's really not. So the context is not actually aligned with the particular topic itself. It's just a way of being kind of, I don't know, clever or getting started or whatever, but I'm definitely not smarter for having read that, and it's not giving me much context. So let's see what the writer does next. He says, now it's no secret that many people have fantasized about being super soldiers, and that many people have often thought that it would help the military. I am here, however, to answer one question, ethically, scientifically, economically, and socially. Gee, that's a lot of lenses. Probably can't swing that in one paper. Is it a good idea to pursue and make super soldiers? Okay, that's a pretty interesting question. Probably from an economic, perhaps scientific, and maybe ethical perspective. I'd take those three. It's a good question. He follows this up with, will the benefits of super soldiers outweigh the risks, and what are the benefits and drawbacks of creating super soldiers? Probably not necessary to add that part. But this is interesting. But the problem is I have absolutely no idea why this matters right now. Are they working on it? Are other countries working on it? Does the technology exist? What kind of technology are we talking about? How much is the government spending on super soldier programs? Are there super soldier programs? And so on and so on and so on and so on. There's no indication here that this matters, except that this student thought it was kind of a cool topic. All right, let's move on to, here's another one. I'll skip this one. No, I'm not. Actually, I'm going to skip down here. Now, the one up here, the thesis is delayed. It comes a little bit later on in the paper. Now notice that this one's more characteristic. The thesis comes down here at the bottom of the first body, or the first paragraph, the introduction for the whole thing. One thing else I noticed is that a lot of these high-scoring essays do include the research question in the introduction somewhere. So you can see this one. I won't reread the whole thing, but it says, what do the current health impacts of the night shift suggest about a need for its future regulation in the United States? And the student moves on to the thesis. Overall, an analysis through the economic, medical, and legal angles show that night shifts do merit government regulations. These regulations will ultimately assist employers in minimizing the health risks of workers, mainly caused by circadian misalignment, and in maximizing their well-being and work efficiency. All right, so thesis there, not delayed. This one as well, same thing, thesis at the bottom. This one's kind of nice because it identifies the controversy of this issue. So this one's about H-1B work visa programs, which I believe one of our groups actually took on this year, this school year. This one begins very nicely with a specific case that brought the controversy of this to the forefront of the American, attention to the legal system. So it says, when Leo Pereiro and Dina Moore, two longtime workers at Disney, were laid off, nobody expected their retaliation against Disney via lawsuit. Because Disney had hired replacements through the H-1B work visa program, Pereiro and Moore accused Disney of using the visas to save money at the expense of its workers. The H-1B work visa program thus became the focal point of Pereiro and Moore's case. In an article by the New York Times, the experiences of Pereiro and Moore portray the H-1B program as a convenient method for companies to save money at the price of domestic jobs. But according to U.S. Customs and Immigration Service, the H-1B program provides work visas to skilled immigrants in specialty occupations for American work employers. The USCIS also notes that H-1B workers must have at least a bachelor's degree and receive the prevailing wage of their occupation as determined by the Department of Labor. But these standards the idea presented by Pereiro and Moore that H-1B workers are cheap, unskilled replacements, indicating possible issues with how the program implements its objectives. Furthering controversy, a Reuters article weighing opinions on the H-1B program finds that supporters of the program believe foreign workers bring top talent to fill American jobs. In contrast, opponents claim that H-1B workers are inexperienced and underpaid substitutes for American workers. Government data indicates that H-1B workers are coming to America at an increasing rate, showing that the issue will likely persist. As noted by a scholarly group devoted to congressional studies, the Judiciary Committee proposed the founding legislation of the H-1B program, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. Given its role in passing the program, should the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee revise the H-1B work visa program? Based on an assessment of the H-1B program's goals and its real-life implementation, the Judiciary Committee should reform the program's implementation to realign the program with its theoretical goals. All right, so this one spends a lot of time talking about why this is a controversial issue, again, using sources to bring that some credibility, and then the thesis comes right there at the end. So I'm going to post this so you can take a look at these and some other sample introductions, and hopefully this will give you some ideas and some inspiration for writing your own. Bye-bye.